welcome you. Obviously, today, like we talked about, we're going to be talking about financing both adapted and non-adapted vehicles. And before we get started, I wanted to introduce myself. Again, I'm Heather Ferguson, and I am the Director of Financial Lending. And then we have our co-host here today, which is Sarah Calhoun, and she's our Loan Fund Administrator. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll get started. So just to go over a couple highlights today of what we're going to be discussing, we're going to be talking about vehicle funding and finance management. We're also going to discuss ways to get on the road and to be able to start driving. And then we're going to spend some time talking about insurance because there are some differences for car insurance that's going to be needed for adapted vehicles. First thing I want to do is clear up any misconceptions, the differences between a grant and a loan. Oftentimes, people think that the assistive technology program is a grant program. Grant is money that is given by an organization and does not require to be repaid. We are not a grant program, but we do work with several organizations that offer grants to help pay for portions of the vehicle adaptations. But we are a loan program, and a loan is money that is advanced to you for a specific need. It's repaid over a period of time, and that repayment also includes a set dollar amount and obviously an interest rate. I do want to go over some of the different funding options that are available, as well as some of the grant programs that are available. So Maryland TAP Financial Loan Program, that's us. There's also resources available through the Veterans Association for anybody that might have served and would fall under that category. The Veterans Association does offer small grants for people that are looking to have an adaptation made to a vehicle. There's also the DOORS administration. DOORS also offers grants, as well as the DDA. And again, those grants that they offer will help to finance a portion of an adaptation that could potentially be made to a vehicle. The DDA also offers Medicaid home waiver and community grants as well. And then there's a lot of dealerships throughout the state of Maryland, and actually around the country, that offer very small grants for any type of adapted vehicle that is purchased by a specific manufacturer. And then also with those manufacturers' credits, they can be used towards either the loan balance to make the amount of the purchase less. While you're at the dealership, they will go over that with you. It's my understanding that they will give you documentation that you will then forward to the manufacturer, and then that manufacturer will issue a credit for that dollar amount. So Maryland TAP, this is where we're going to discuss and make sure that we understand the difference between an adapted vehicle and a non-adapted vehicle. Our program does offer loans for both types of vehicles. A non-adapted vehicle obviously is just going to be a vehicle that doesn't have any specialized equipment that's been added to it to make it accessible for either the driver or the passenger of that vehicle. But we also realize that there are people that live with disabilities across the state that could benefit from a loan from our program that would need something that was not adapted. So the first category, where it talks about non-adapted vehicles, tells you that we are able to finance vehicles for up to $40,000 for someone that's looking to purchase something that does not have one of those adaptations. The age of the vehicle will determine the term that the loan can be taken out for. So obviously, when you look at that slide there, you'll see The older the vehicle, the lower the term would be. And then when you move over to the next category where it talks about maximum loan amounts for adapted vehicles, that dollar amount is much higher because those vehicles are a lot more expensive. Again, you'll see that depending on the age of the vehicle, that will determine the length of time that that loan can be taken out for. One of the highlights of our program is that we do offer those extended terms on those newer vehicles. And what that means is the length of time that you'll have to repay that loan is much longer than what you'll find at a traditional financial institution. We also have something that's called preferred interest rates. The interest rates are fixed, but they can change at any time. There's two ways that someone would qualify for a loan through our program. Currently, we partner with the State Employees Credit Union of Maryland. They're our partnering lender. Anytime an applicant comes to our program, the first thing we do is to see if their loan will qualify through the credit union based on the credit union's lending criteria and their underwriting guidelines. If the loan is approved based on the applicant's own merit through the credit union, the partnering credit union will offer them a discounted rate from what their regular rates are because they've come through our program. The maximum loan term that the credit union will offer, whether it's someone coming through our program or someone that's coming to the credit union on their own, is that 84-month loan term. So anything that's over that 84-month loan term would not be qualified by someone through the credit union on their own merit. However, if that applicant is not qualified by the credit union, then we would have them come to us again, and we would send their loan to our loan review board, who would evaluate the loan based on our underwriting guidelines to see if they were able to qualify. In the event that they are able to qualify, again, based on the age of the vehicle, they have the option to have an extended term, which is going to make that payment more affordable because it's going to be stretched out, obviously, over a longer period of time. And then they would receive whatever our preferred interest rate is at that time. Again, our rate is a fixed rate, but that rate can change at any time. There's also a lot of options that people have with various dealerships across the state. Dealerships obviously offer their own types of financing. Typically, they have relationships with multiple financial institutions, and if someone applies for a loan directly at a dealership, that financial institution that picks up and approves that application is going to offer them a rate and a term. Sometimes those rates can be variable rates. It depends on the financial institution. Some manufacturers will offer separate financing for any adaptation that's being done on a vehicle. So what that means is, let's say you're at Honda of Annapolis and you've decided that you're going to purchase a Honda Odyssey van that's going to need adaptations placed on it. And the adaptations that are going to be placed on it are going to be done by a manufacturer by the name of Brawnability, which is a manufacturer that produces some of these adaptations to vehicles. And that person wants to pay cash for the vehicle. They don't want a loan for the vehicle. They have cash for the actual vehicle. But that adaptation is something that they need to borrow money for. Some dealerships will offer financing through the manufacturer's financing for those adaptations. And that's something, like I said, that can be done separately at the local dealerships. The dealerships that do adaptations to vehicles and that offer accessible vehicles, we're going to send that information out to you at the end of this session so that you'll have that information and you can refer to them as needed. But we encourage you to shop the interest rates to determine what the best option for you is going to be. Again, one of the advantages for coming through our program is that whether you qualify with the financial institution on your own merit, or you qualify through a review from our Financial Loan Review Board, the rate is most likely going to be lower than any rate that you will receive from any of the dealerships and the financing that they offer. All right, so next we're going to talk about quality control. Quality control for vehicles. There's an organization that's called the National Mobility Equipment Dealers. We've also included the link for this that you will receive as well. They are an association that's a nonprofit trade association of mobility equipment manufacturers. And what this organization does is they provide certification for crash testing of adapted equipment. It is very, very important that when you purchase an adapted vehicle, that you request proof that this certification has been completed. Whether you're buying a vehicle from a dealership or you're buying a dealership from a private party. A private party is someone who owns an adapted vehicle outright. They have posted that vehicle for sale and you have decided to purchase it. It's very, very important to make sure that you check and make sure that that vehicle adaptation is certified. There are a lot of people, because of the high cost of these adaptations, that will rig the adaptations, make some of them work themselves, and that can be very, very dangerous. So we definitely encourage a relationship with this organization by doing your research for whatever vehicle it is that you choose to purchase, if that vehicle is adapted. Maryland area driver and rehabilitation programs. There are several programs across the state that help with clinical assessments, behind the wheel assessments, and then novice driver assessments. The clinical assessments are going to be for someone who has received an injury or is recovering from an injury, and the way in which they're going to drive is going to be different. Behind the wheel assessment, that is when that person has gone through training, they've gone through classes, and they need to have an assessment done to make sure that they can operate the vehicle based on whatever those adaptations might have been that they have received during the clinical assessment, so that they can then safely operate the vehicle. We're going to flip to the next slide. So most providers that are listed in the guide that we're going to send out to you can provide both the in-office clinical assessment and the behind-the-wheel driving assessment, and then driver rehabilitation training if necessary. Some providers will only offer clinical assessments. That's when they'll do an assessment on the individual that's going to be the driver, to basically figure out what it is that they're going to need in an adaptation to make that vehicle drivable and accessible to that person. And then some providers will even offer additional services to help identify specific adaptive equipment. So thinking about a steering wheel, someone might need a spinner knob on the steering wheel, which will enable them to have a better grip on the wheel. Some drivers require hand controls, which means that the vehicle will actually be accelerated and they'll be able to brake by using their hands rather than their foot. And there's training that these providers, can offer. And that information, again, is going to be listed in the guide that we'll give to you. There's a few providers that will provide assessments for first-time or novice drivers who have never been licensed before. That information will also be listed in the guide. Now, I do want to bring up something during this time. Some people have owned and operated a vehicle before an injury has taken place, And now the way in which they operate the vehicle is going to have to be different. So an example of that would be someone that was involved in an accident and they no longer have use of their legs, but they still are going to be able to drive after a clinical assessment's done, after training has been done, by the use of their hands. We call that an adaptation to a vehicle, which means that in order for them to drive their existing vehicle, something's going to have to change. And with that change, there's going to be a cost. So if that person's going to require hand controls for that vehicle, that is also something that we can finance. So that person's not necessarily purchasing a car, but they're purchasing something that's going to make their existing car drivable. We do offer loans for that type of need as well. Vehicle modification vendors. This goes along with what I just said about a modification to an existing vehicle, or even a modification for a vehicle that's being purchased. In the guide that we're going to send out to you, there's a listing of multiple vendors across the state that offer these types of adaptations and services. There's also several out of state that can be used as well. Again, one of the important things to remember is if you do choose a company to do the adaptations that's not listed in the guide that we present to you, just make sure that they are certified through that NEMDA to make sure that whatever type of equipment or adaptation they're going to be placing on the vehicle for you has been crash tested. So alternative transportation options. This is just some basic information for people that might need to be transported because they don't yet have a vehicle, their vehicle's been in an accident, and they need to get out into the community, they need to get to work, they need to go to medical appointments or therapy appointments. A couple of different options across the state that we wanted to go over just so people had that basic information. The first one that we're going to talk about is Mobility Link. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the Transit app and MTA. And then we're going to also talk about rideshare. There's another one that I'm going to talk about that's not on this slide, but we will send out that information to you as well. And that's something called Uber Wave, Uber W-A-V. We're going to talk about that as well. So with Mobility Link is a specialized transit service that's available to people because of a disability and are functionally able to get to a bus stop. They need to be able to wait unassisted at a stop or a station, and then they can board the bus by themselves. Mobility Link is a shared ride service that's offered from your home, so from the interior door of your home or any pickup location to the first door of your destination. So it's door-to-door service, which is a really nice option for people that need it. And then Transit and MTA. So there's a Transit app. Again, this information will be in the guide that we'll send to you. And the Transit provides real-time arrival information for CityLink, Local Link, Express Bus Link, any type of commuter bus, MARC train, Metro, Subway Link, the light rail, all across the state. And whether you're checking the status of your favorite bus route or need step-by-step directions to get to somewhere new, the Transit app and the MTA would have you covered. You would just need to know, again, where you want it to go and where you want it to be dropped off. And then rideshare, both Lyft and Uber have increased accessibility for all of their riders. So currently, Uber offers something called Uber Wave. That's W-A-V, and that stands for Wheelchair Accessible Van. So someone that needs a ride, currently they offer services in Montgomery County, Anne Arundel County, Prince George's County, and Washington, D.C. There is a push to expand this service to other counties throughout the state, including the rural counties, to make this something that's available to everyone. But we did want to make you aware that this is an option for someone who has an urgent and an immediate need to be transported and lives with a disability. All right. This brings us to our next section where we're going to talk about renting an accessible vehicle. Renting an accessible vehicle can serve a couple of purposes. Let's say that someone has been involved in an accident and their vehicle is being repaired and they still need to get to work or to an appointment. Obviously, they would need a rental car. There are organizations out there that do rent accessible vehicles. Or this could also meet the need of someone that isn't exactly sure what type of positioning or seating inside the vehicle they want for the passenger, whether it be a rear entry vehicle or a side entry vehicle. Organizations offer rentals so that you can test the vehicle out to see what is going to work best for you before you decide to make a purchase. There is an organization across the state by the name of Mobility Works, which is a local dealership that offers rentals of their vehicles. You can connect with them. And then also referring back to that NMEDA, they have on their website, you can put in the city and state and zip code of where you're going to be all across the United States. And they will guide you to the closest location where you could rent an accessible vehicle. That can be very helpful if you're traveling out of state and you have a need, and all of a sudden you have to get home and you need an accessible vehicle to do so. So auto insurance. You want to protect your vehicle, you want to protect the adaptations of your vehicle, and you also want to protect the drivers. So we're going to go over what I like to call the periodic table for auto insurance. But before we do that, I do want to highlight one thing, and that is when you obtain insurance on an adapted vehicle, it is very important to let your insurance company know that the vehicle has been adapted. And the reason for that is those adaptations are not automatically covered on your insurance policy. So if you get into an accident and that vehicle is totaled, or you get into an accident and the access ramp has been damaged somehow in that accident, that portion is not normally covered under a regular insurance policy. So you do want to make sure that you notify the insurance company if there are any adaptations added on to the vehicle so that they can also be covered under your policy. And then just the different types of insurances that can be added to a policy. Bodily injury liability protection. That's basically if you cause an accident, it's going to cover you and the driver's medical costs if someone is injured in the accident. Property damage liability insurance is important because it not only covers the vehicle itself, but it's also going to cover any property that's inside the vehicle. What that's referring to is if there's a wheelchair in the trunk of the car and the car gets rear-ended and the wheelchair gets damaged, that wheelchair is now covered if there's property damage liability coverage on that vehicle. Same thing goes with anybody that's riding in some type of specialized seating or a specialized strap or seatbelt. If they get damaged, those are also covered under property damage liability insurance. And then uninsured motorist coverage, that's something that you can add to your insurance policy in the event that someone you have an accident with is not covered. It will still offer insurance for any damages that are done to your vehicle if your vehicle has been damaged by that driver. And then personal injury protection, that's a type of insurance that reimburses for any medical expenses that are accrued after an accident. that your insurance does not pay for. And then also it can help to pay for any loss of wages. So if you miss any work for any specific time due to an injury from an auto accident, if you have that PIP insurance added to your policy, that can help to pay for some of that as well. And then gap insurance, which is guaranteed auto protection insurance. This is the highlight for our program. We like to tell people that it is highly, highly, highly encouraged to carry gap insurance on any adapted vehicle, or essentially any vehicle that's been purchased. What gap does is it seals the gap between what is owed on a vehicle and what the insurance company will tell you that the vehicle is worth in the event that it's been damaged and totaled from an accident, or it's been stolen and has been deemed unrecoverable by the police after a period of time. So what that means is, let's say someone has an adapted vehicle that we know is worth about $50,000, but $20,000 of that vehicle's value is the adaptations to that vehicle. And now that vehicle has been in an accident and it's been totaled. And the insurance company looks up the value of the vehicle and they say, it's only worth $30,000. But you still have $20,000 of adaptations on the vehicle that you still have a loan for that still is required to be paid back. If you have gap coverage, that gap insurance is going to seal the gap between what the insurance company gives you for the totaled or stolen vehicle and what you actually owe on it, so that there is no outstanding balance for a vehicle that's no longer drivable, operable, or owned. Financial management and budgeting. So these types of vehicles, adapted vehicles, and even now non-adapted vehicles can be quite expensive. And so we highly encourage people to prepare in advance to get an idea of what it is that they would be able to afford, and really just to get a grasp on their overall finances, so that once the vehicle is purchased, it's not only affordable, but it's also something that has been planned for. A program that I want to highlight as well is the Maryland Cash Campaign, which is a free service in the state of Maryland. It's a program that promotes economic advancement for low to moderate income individuals and families, both in Baltimore and across the entire state of Maryland. They accomplish their mission through operating a portfolio of direct service programs, building organizational field capacity, and leading policy and advocacy to strengthen family economic stability. So to break that down, they will offer help with taxes, both business and corporate. They offer training and financial coaching and creating an action plan. And what an action plan is preparing to make a large purchase. They also help with budgeting and financing for people who are potentially overextended, meaning the debt to income ratio is a little bit too high for that individual to qualify for any type of loan. They will offer budgeting and counseling services to help get back on track and to help find ways to manage debt. A couple of resources that you can take advantage of in advance to applying for a loan, or just in general to have an idea of what you're looking for in the future, what your financial goals might be. There's a couple links that are listed. One is for the American Consumer Credit Counseling Service. They offer something called a car loan calculator, where you can go in and you can place the type of vehicle that you're interested in. You can type the requested term that you're interested in. And then from there, you can see if the payment would be manageable for your finances. There's also the loan repayment calculator, which is a calculator where you can go in and you can put in interest rates. and play with that and see what would be affordable for you as well. And then there's the American Credit Counseling that also offers a financial workbook. And that financial workbook is a really good tool for budgeting, not only if you're interested in purchasing a vehicle, but just having a handle on your finances, creating a budget, and being able to manage your money well. All right, so this is going to bring us to the next section, which is going to be about how to apply for a loan through the Maryland Assistive Technology Loan Program. And again, the benefits of that are going to be a discounted rate, an extended term. There's an application that's online. That's the quickest, fastest, easiest, most efficient way for someone to apply. The first step when they go to our website and they click on that link is that person's going to be required to register and to create an account with a program called One Stop. And then from there, they're going to be directed to the application for our program. And then also we have the option if people don't have access to the internet, they can request an application be mailed to them and we will make sure that they get it as well. All right. So we're also going to talk about other types of assistive technology that Maryland TAP will finance. And I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Calhoun, our loan administrator, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about that.
Thank you, Heather. So other kinds of AT that our program will finance, we have several applicants who come and need home modifications. So we offer loans for those. We have other assistive technologies such as scooters or wheelchair and other mobility equipment, braille equipment, blind and low vision aids, hearing aids, and that is something that a lot of constituents in Maryland are unaware that yes, the need for a hearing aid is considered a disability, and we offer funding for that. Amplifiers as well for people who may not have a hearing deficit, but need their hearing to be amplified or need to actually be called, their attention needs to be called to the speaker. We have communication devices, adaptive toys, home and smart technology for the home, environmental controls, equipment for ADLs, meaning adaptive kitchen equipment, eating equipment, hygiene equipment, accessible apps, computers, adaptive gaming, and so much more. So our funding for loans is very extensive when it comes to assistive technology. Thank you, Heather.
All right, so we're going to move to the next slide. And this is the time that we're going to address your questions. So again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, or you can share them in the question and answer section. And we will read through the questions and then we will do our best to answer them.
So I'm going to stop presenting now and go ahead back to our main screen.
This is Lori. I did answer a few questions that popped up in the Q&A box, but I'm going to go ahead and ask some that have just appeared. The first is to clarify so this is talking about the types of insurance. only covers if uninsured driver causes accident, not if you cause accident, but other person is uninsured. I don't know if you guys have some clarity on the insurance, like what that covers.
So the insurance covers you and your vehicle if someone that hits you did not have insurance. It does not cover you you're covered regardless. If you cause the accident and you have insurance, you're covered. This would be for someone that causes an accident for you and they don't have insurance. It would still enable you to make a claim to your insurance company to have your vehicle fixed.
Thank you. Denise, hopefully that answers your question. If not, just follow up with another one. And then we have another question about whether or not the program is available regardless of the type of waiver a child is receiving, and I'm assuming they mean the Maryland TAP program. So whether is Maryland TAP or the AT financing program available regardless of the type of waiver the child receives?
The answer to that is yes. We are not limited by any other funding or any other waiver programs. The qualifications for someone to be able to be eligible for our program is anyone that lives with a disability, cares for someone with a disability. So no waiver programs or any additional funding, whether it be, Social Security, SSI, none of those would impact someone from being able to be eligible to qualify for a loan.
Thank you. Marianne, hopefully that answers your questions. Let me go over to the chat, and sounds like we are answering most of the questions that folks are asking. And we will just, to reiterate, we will send the recording of this webinar. We'll send that out to everybody who has registered for today's session. It'll take about a week for us to get that recording posted. We will also have the slide deck available to send out to everybody who has registered as well. So you will get a copy of the slide deck and a link to the recording. And at this time, I'm not seeing any more questions coming in either through the Q&A or the chat.
Awesome. Well, I guess if there aren't any more, I think another question just popped in. One moment.
Yeah.
Let me go back and look at that. So that question was in regards to whether or not we still have a catalog or website reference for the smart home technology that's available. Yes. If you would like to send us an email, we can send you that link for the, I'm assuming that you're talking about the home modifications catalog. And yes, we can send that to you.
And it is also on our website too. I will put that, the link to our website in the chat.
Perfect. Yep. And then, like we said, you guys are going to get a copy of the slide deck, and that slide deck is going to have links to all of the resources that we spoke of today, including our website and the websites for the different organizations, dealerships, all of that will be in that as well.
Yep.
All right. Well, if there are not any other questions, we'll go ahead and end today's session. Thank you all for participating, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Yep.
Yes,
Thank you, guys.
you.